This section 3.1 is the Cartesian coordinate system. It's about plotting points and figuring out how to graph equations. So we want to learn the Cartesian coordinate system, how to graph equations, and we want to talk about the formulas for distance and midpoint. Okay? So a lot of this will be familiar. Again, we're going to start out with some definitions like we always do. And if you need to, you can look at the Mass Dictionary app, right? So let's start out with the definition. An ordered pair. An ordered pair parentheses a comma b consists of two real numbers a and b. Now it may be confusing because you're used to seeing this for interval notation, but there's the difference. Right now we're talking about an ordered pair on a plane. Like, we'll talk about that. So for this ordered pair where you have real numbers a and b, A is called the first coordinate or your x coordinate. B is called what? Do you remember? The y coordinate, good. Or instead of the first, it's the second, good. So now we know how to identify our coordinates in an ordered pair. So let's define the system that we're talking about. The Cartesian coordinate system, or the Cartesian plane, which is probably what you heard of it as before, consists of two perpendicular real number lines, each called an axis, intersecting at the 0 point of each line. So you would have this, said they're perpendicular real number lines intersecting at 0. But because we're talking about ordered pairs, this is like 0, 0, not like, it is. This is our x-axis. This is our y-axis. You with me? Are we all right? Okay. All right. So we refer to this Cartesian plane as R cross R. What does that bold R mean? All real numbers, right? So we're taking it and we're crossing it with itself. That's why it's the perpendicular axis. Or sometimes we say it's R squared. Okay? And I didn't write it on the line because of my space, so let me do that. Now, do you remember the quadrants?
Yeah.
Which one is this one? That's the signs, but what quadrant is it? Yes, good. It's the first, quadrant 1. What quadrant is this? 2, good. Quadrant
3,
good. And
4.
quadrant 4, good. Now, if you want to talk about the signs of each quadrant, over here in quadrant 1, they're both going to be positive, good. Here in quadrant 2, x negative and y is positive, so negative, positive. Quadrant 3, negative, 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 good, both negative. Quadrant 4, positive, negative, very good, right? What questions do you have? So then, just because we want to make sure you know where they live and how to plot them, suppose you have the set of points, and I want you to plot the following set of points. and identify the quadrant in which each point lies. So for example, if we start out with -4, 0, how do we get to -4, 0? Describe from the origin how we get to that.
Go back 4.
Go left 4, you said,
And stay.
and stay here? Why do we stay here?
It's 0.
God bless you. Because 0 is your y. Good. So we plot this point here. Yeah? Okay, good. Go ahead and take a minute and plot the other 3 points. So, tell me how to get to the next point. From 0. 0.
Stay 0 and go up 4.
You said go up 4 or down 4? Oh, down 4. Why? Because you're it. What's it? Use your words you just learned. It. Yeah, thank you. Good. We're just going to label it just cause. So we'll label it over here too. Now, tell me about our next point. Starting at the origin, what do we do? You said go down? Go left. How many? 3, and then go up 3. So right here. That's 3, 3. That's not 3, 3. Yeah. -3, 3. Good. And then from the origin. Down 3 right there. Good. Excellent. Okay. So we plotted our points. We identified the quadrant by default. So we're good. Now you can graph equations. Determine the values of the missing entries in the table of ordered pairs, then plot the ordered pairs and sketch the graph. So here we have y is equal to x squared plus 2x plus 1. What type of equation is this? A quadratic. Very good, right? Because the degree is x squared. The degree is 2, it's squared. Good. So here I gave you a y, here I gave you an x. So we can adjust because we know what the equation is. So when y is 0, we need to find out what x is, right? We put 0 in for y. So we have 0 equals x squared plus 2x plus 1. But then we can factor this quadratic as x here, and then what? 1 and 1, right? So plus 1 plus 1. So we have a root repeated twice. So what is x? X is -1. Good. So we get x is -1. So what point does that correspond to? What ordered pair? -1, comma 0. Good. So if you want to get there from the origin, we go to the left. How many? 1. And where do we go? We just stay there. You got it. So that's 1 point. You can label it if you want. Labeling is always a good habit. Always a good habit. And so now I give you an x. I tell you x is 1. So what do we do now? We plug in a 1 in the equation for x. Yes, that's exactly what you do. So I'll use blue, say we're at the second line. So you then have y is equal to 1 squared plus 2 times 1 plus 1. 1 squared is 1 plus 2 plus 1. That gives us 4, right? So then you plot that, or what's the point? 1, 4. Good. So what we did was we took this 1. We took 1. We substituted it in for x here. Because this was our x. It's in the x column. Does that make sense? Okay. So we get the point 1, 4. So tell me how to get to 1, 4 from the origin. And then up 4 times. Yeah, right there. Does that make sense? Okay. So then, tell me what to do for this one. Plug it in for what, though? Oh, yeah. Y equals 1. I'm going to use green. Equals what? Yo, the yawning is what?
X squared plus 2x.
What if I did that to y'all when I'm talking to y'all? How y'all gonna feel?
I wouldn't mind.
You wouldn't mind?
I mean, it's a yarn.
You said what? All right, so here, what do we do now? Subtract 1, right? To get 0 equals? X squared plus 2x, because the ones are going to cancel out, right? These two terms have what in common?
X.
Yes, so good, both of you. So you have x times the quantity what?
X plus 2.
Good. So what do we get?
X equals -2.
X equals -2, that's it?
X equals 0.
X equals 0. So from here, you get how many points? 2, right? So we get -2, 1, or we get what? 0, 1. So I'm going to write it on the left. So we get -2, 1, or we get 0, 1. Come on, highlight for me. We get this one, or we get this one. So we need to plot those. So from 0, 0 to get to -2, 1, we go left 2, up 1. For 0, 1, what do we do from the origin? 0, 0 is the origin.
Stay in the middle, so go up 1.
Stay in the middle, but go up 1, right? And with enough time, you can finish filling in the table, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you what they are. You can check it on your own. Whenever you substitute in 2 for x, you're going to get 9. When you substitute in -3 for x, you're going to get 4. So then you'll plot those points. So you have 2, 9, and then -3, 4. When you plot those points, you get -3, 4, so there. And then 2, 9 would be here. And when you graph it, connect the points, you get this. So it's a parabola. The shape is a parabola. What questions do you have? We have 2 minutes. What questions do you have? How did you?
Alright, so when you
Be respectful.
well, I'm trying to think how to say it.
Yeah. I'm just saying everybody else pay attention. That's what I'm saying to your question.
When you put 0 for y,
The question is being asked.
when you put 0 in for y, do you start factoring from there? Like,
When you put 0 in for y,
yes.
yes. When we put 0 in for y, we have 0 equals x squared plus 2x plus 1. So because our goal is to solve for x, you can either factor or use the quadratic formula here to find out what x is. So I chose to factor. But you can use a quadratic formula here too by identifying a, b, and c. Both ways work.
Okay.
What other questions do you all have?
Nah,
Be respectful. I just erased something. No, you're good. I'm saying to everyone else, be respectful of you asking your question.
For the green, on
Yes.
line 4, how did you get x equals -2?
Ah, because here, this, because you have x times x plus 2, that means either x equals 0 or x plus 2 equals 0. So here we have x equals 0 or x plus 2 equals 0. But if x plus 2 is 0, that means we subtract 2 from both sides to get x equals -2. Does that make sense? Okay, so you're listening? You're listening? That's right. Wait a minute. Because the question was, how do we get 0? Because you have a product. Remember,
No, I mean, -2, comma 1, and then you put 0, comma 1. I get-
Because x is 0. You put this where the x's can be, in the x coordinate. And then the y is 1. Yeah. Okay, so make sure you're listening. I'm going to finish recording this video for your distance and your midpoint. You're responsible for going over that in the video. Okay, so make sure you do that. Make sure you do your homework, and we'll move on to 3.2 next time. Have a good one. Okay, so if we have 2 points, how do we find the distance between them? If we have 2 points, how do we find the distance between them? So in other words, if we have points x1, y1, and x2, y1, notice they're on the same line, so their y values are the same. If we have these two, and we have these two as well, then what can we say? So here, notice that this change in distance here is x sub 2 minus x sub 1. It's the absolute value of x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Then if we look at this vertical change in distance, that is the absolute value of y sub 2 minus y sub 1. So if we want the distance between these 2 points, do you remember what is called, if we have a right triangle, what big theorem is associated with that? Pythagorean theorem, right? So if we use the Pythagorean theorem and we know what this is and we know what this is, then that means that we can find out what this leg is. This is going to give us our distance. Okay? So I'm going to put it in red because this is what you're taking away from it. So if we want this distance from that side, that's going to be given by the formula D equals the square root of quantity x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared plus the quantity y sub 2 minus y sub 1 squared. That's the distance formula. So definition, the distance between 2 points, x sub 1, y sub 1, and x sub 2, y sub 2 in the Cartesian plane is given by D equals the square root of the quantity x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared plus the quantity y sub 2 minus y sub 1 squared. Okay? So that's the distance formula. That's the distance formula. Okay? So if you're given 2 points and you need to find a distance, this is what you use. If we have a line segment, how do we find the midpoint? So in other words, if you have 2 points here, how do you find the point that's right in the middle?
Cut in half.
Cut what in half?
The 2 points.
How do we write that mathematically?
X1 plus x squared.
Say what, x plus, do you mean x squared or x sub 2? x1 plus
x2.
x2.
And it's like y plus y1.
Say what?
It's like plus y1.
You said plus?
Yeah. Ooh, no, hold on. Because you got to get those 2 points in the right box. So I forgot how it's supposed to be.
No, it's take away the addition symbol and put that over 2. And it's gonna be an order pair, so put a 1 next to it. And then it's y1 plus y2
Good,
over 2.
good, good. Very good. This is midpoint. Very good. That's the midpoint. Very good. You got it. So let's just go ahead and write it in. So the midpoint, this point right here in the middle, is given by that. So the midpoint between 2 points, x sub 1, y sub 1, and x sub 2, y sub 2 in the Cartesian plane has the following coordinates. X sub 1 plus x sub 2 over 2, and y sub 1 plus y sub 2 over 2. So really, if you're given 2 points, you can find the distance between the points. You can find the midpoint of a line. What questions do you have? Okay. All right. So to see, make sure you know how to apply them. Let's look at an example. You need a minute here? I see some still writing. Do you need a minute?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let's look at an example. So example 3, determine A, the distance between the point 5, 6 and -3, -2, and find the midpoint of the line segment joining the point 5, 6 and -3, -2. Would you like a couple minutes to try it?
Yes.
Yes. What do you need to remember? The formulas, right? The formulas. So make sure you go back and you pull your formulas and go ahead and try this. I'll pause the video to explain.
I plugged in first order pairs, which is -3 - 5
Talk loud, please.
squared plus parentheses -2 - 6 squared. And then after you simplify both, you should get square root of -8 squared plus -8 squared. And then after you
Is that
simplify-
written up how you want it to be? That second part? You wrote -8 squared
Yes.
in the parentheses. You have the square.
Oh, shoot.
Use your eraser. Okay.
And then after I simplified both of those, I got square root 64 plus 64, which equals the square root of 128. And then after you put that in the calculator, you should get 8, the square root of 2, which is the distance.
Does everyone agree? What do you do now? Say it again. You leave it alone, but did she do a good job? What do we do? Oh, okay, good job. No, leave it up.
Okay, so you do x1.
I think it's
And so you have 5 plus
Speak a little loud for the people in the back.
5 plus -3 over 2, and you have 6 plus -2 over 2. And if you add 5 plus -3, you get 2.
Hold on 1 second. What's missing from that line?
The comma.
Comma and what else? Yeah, good.
And then you get 4 over 2. And if you simplify both of those, you get 1 over 2. And
What should go in the middle of those pairs?
no,
No. Between the 2 over 2, comma 4 over 2, and the next thing. So right here? What should go between this and this? What should go here?
oh,
It should be equal.
It's equal sign.
Did everybody get it? That whole side is missing. You found the distance for part A, and here you found the what? Midpoint. The only thing left to do is to box that. Okay? Be in the habit of boxing your final answers. You got it. Very good. What questions do you have? Okay? That's 3.1.